David P. says, I'm running 2 homebrew campaigns and I find myself frequently getting writer's block and trying to decide what to do in the next session. I've got all of your books and hundreds of other books and feel overwhelmed in trying to find the right scenario. Any tips for writer's block GM decision paralysis? I have some thoughts, and a lot of it is going to depend on where that feeling is coming from and what exactly that feeling is. It doesn't sound like it's actual writer's block as in I'm out of ideas. It sounds more like it's I've got too many ideas and I don't know which one to pick. And I think what we're facing there is this idea of like an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is this idea that I might pick something and then say, I could have put anything else there, and instead I picked this one thing. How do I know that this one thing is better than every other thing I could pick? An example would be an adventure. You want to run an adventure. So you pick this one adventure from this one book, right? And the opportunity cost is the idea that you could have picked any adventure ever written in the last 50 years for D&D, plus anything you could have come up with. I don't want to say infinite because infinite's really big, but that's thousands of choices of published stuff, tens of thousands of things, maybe 100,000. And how did you know the one you picked was the best out of those 100,000? That's opportunity cost. And the answer is you don't, and you shouldn't, right? And instead, you have to kind of do this like fireman decision making, right? Fireman decision making is pick the first one that's going to do the job. So rather than trying to find the optimal choice for something, you instead say, what's the first one that I can get to that I think will do the job? What is the first adventure that you come to that says, hey, this will be a fun game for my friends and I? Because really the adventure doesn't matter nearly as much as like how you run it and the dynamic that you have between you and your friends and your players at the game. So that feeling of opportunity cost can definitely be a burden. And the best way to kind of treat that is instead of saying, what are all of the other ones that I could get in place? Just, as you're going through and say, that's a cool one, I'm going to go with that. I do that with Dyson maps. If I'm picking a map, I don't go through every one of 3 or 4 or 1,000, right? He has 1,000 different maps. If I go through 1,000 different maps to try to find the perfect map, I'm going to be there all day. Instead, I find the first map that'll do the job. The first map that resembles the thing that I'm looking for, that's close enough, in it goes. And that gets away from that idea of like getting away from decision paralysis and letting perfect be the enemy of good, right? The famous, I think they claim Voltaire said it, right? That don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And that's a good philosophy, right? It's a reason why like we tie it to Voltaire is thousands of years ago, is because if you're seeking perfection, you're always going to be seeking. But if you're with good enough, you're going to pick the first one that you've got. So I think that really helps a lot. Another exercise that I go through that I really, really like and I find is really valuable for me is writing a list of 10 things. So instead of trying to find the one perfect adventure idea, write down 10 adventure ideas, perfection be damned. And then look through those to say, which of those 10 do I think really kind of grabs me? And what you'll find is the more you're stripping your brain for ideas, the more that you're dropping these things out there, and the further down you get, you start to get better and better ideas, right? That's another way to kind of come up with things. Like, what are the 10 that you would pick? That way, it's also a finite list. You only have those 10. You pick from one of those 10 and off you go. You're not making a list of 100. You're not going on forever. But also the iteration of going through the list doesn't leave you time to decide whether or not one is good. Instead of hemming and hawing about that first one, you have 9 more. So just get it down and do the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one, right? And that way you're not bending on perfection each time. It can be really, really handy. And then another trick would be random lists that I really find value in rolling. I've been doing it a lot on this show. Rolling on random tables gives me ideas that I wouldn't come up with myself. And finding the best set of random tables that really help you get these ideas, I think can be really valuable. I wrote the Lazy DM's Companion around this idea that the Lazy DM's Companion has lots of different adventure scenarios and lots of different ways that you can roll to give you ideas about those adventure scenarios. It has lots of tools for like different kinds of quests, different kinds of missions, items, NPCs, locations, all kinds of stuff. But it also focuses them around these particular different kind of quest structures that we already know work well, like the 7 Samurai quest model, or the 3 of 5 Keys quest model, the Jaws or the Raiders of the Lost Ark quest models, right? There's these different models that we know work well for RPGs in general, that build situations that our characters can explore, and then we can roll randomly to kind of fill in different details that we might not have been able to fill in directly. So those would be my main advice. This, I think, is a common problem. It's a reason why I put this question in here. I think it's a common problem of getting stuck trying to come up with ideas. I don't think it's a lack of ideas. I have a feeling, and you're you and I'm me, and I don't know what's actually going on in your world, but if I'm going to make assumptions about things, because here we are, my assumption would be that a lot of it could be coming from that feeling of the loss of opportunity cost. That how do I know that this thing is the absolute best purchase or best option for this game? And instead say, what's the first one that I think is going to do the job? And going with that, I think that can really help. I hope you found this show useful. If you did and you want more stuff like this, please consider subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It is absolutely free to sign up. You get a free adventure generator signing up with all kinds of cool random tables for you to roll on, and you get an RPG-related email sent directly to your inbox every Tuesday. It's totally free to sign up. You can also support me directly on Patreon. It's a very low price. You get access to a whole bunch of different tools to help you run your RPGs, tips, tricks, the City of Arches source book, different online tools to help, and the Patreon Q&A and a dedicated Discord server. And you can pick up any of my books, including The Lazy DM's Companion, which is packed with random tables, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master to help you prepare your game, the Lazy DM Workbook to sit in front of you running your game, Forge of Foes to help you build monsters, and tons of fantastic adventure books to give you adventures that you can grab onto and run in your game. Thank you all very much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.